Part 1. Fringe Artists in the Entertainment Industry. Author, Chizu Xiaomao. Chapter 1. Chapter 1-1. Actors, please take their places. Parallel world, please do not contact reality. March 15, 1994. In a large courtyard on Zushikao Street in Beijing, an old man stood on the steps of the courtyard door and shouted at the top of his lungs. "Boy Chen! Are you up? Come out quickly, your notice has arrived." From a side room in the backyard of the courtyard, a young man with sharp eyebrows and starry eyes ran out with a towel on his shoulders and toothpaste foam in his mouth. The young man, who was called Chen Ziazi, at the gate of the courtyard came out and saw only the postman's leaving figure. Bah! Chen Lian spat out the toothpaste foam in his mouth and asked, "Why did the postman run away? Where is my notice?" The old man, leaning on the door frame at the door, smiled and said, "If you are still dawdling like you will never be able to work as a postman. I gave you the notice. I also have a registered letter here." "Where is it? Let me take a look." Uncle Chi said happily, "It's been more than a year since you graduated from high school, and you can still pass the exam. Here." As he spoke, he handed the notification letter and registered letter that he carried behind his back to Chen Lian. Chen Lian took the notice and the registered letter, glanced at the registered letter and saw that it was from Yang Cheng, and ignored it. Taking the art examination passing notice and checking it carefully, Chen Lian was not too surprised, but he still had a smile on his lips. Uncle Chi also followed the music and looked at Chen Lian with relief and said, "You can't fight 4 or 6 every day. This part of Nanjing has been ruined by the gangsters. You can still go to college. The old Chen family is really smoking from its grave." "Chen Lian, don't slander, you asked me to fight." Uncle Chi is an expert in Baguazhang. According to him, his ancestor was a disciple of Dong Haichuan, so when he taught Chen Lian Baguazhang, he tricked him into practicing every day. It is said that Baguazhang pays attention to body skills. If you can't hit 10 of them one by one, it doesn't count as a master. Uncle Chi snorted and said, "Then I don't let you go out and cause trouble every day. Go and brush your teeth." Chen Lian, "Okay, I'm back at home. I have to go to an audition in the afternoon. I won't be back for the next 2 days." Uncle Chi stared at Chen Lian with a straight face and said, "We can still audition at night, so don't do evil things again." Chen Lian laughed and said, "Don't worry, I have corrected my evil ways and turned to good deeds." "Go away, you'll be acting like a fool all day long." Uncle Chi kicked Chen Lian angrily. Chen Lian patted the footprints on his butt, smiled like a normal person and said, Okay, I won't say anything anymore. Just remember not to make a mess." "Okay, then I'll go back and wash my face and brush my teeth first." Chen Lian responded and went back with the qualification notice. Back in his room, Chen Lian looked at the Nortel qualification notice in his hand and couldn't tell whether he was happy or disappointed. "I have already passed the exam once in another world, and one more time is not worth the joy." Chen Lian in another world is a drama actor, but in this life he wants to become a film and television actor. As long as you wait until you take the college entrance examination in July, you will be a qualified college student. Looking back on the past 6 months, Chen Lian is generally very satisfied with his life. The only thing that makes Chen Lian feel regretful is that he has been an orphan in his life and has not experienced the warmth of family love. The original person's parents died in an accident on the way to work a few years ago, leaving him a small wing in a large courtyard with a total area of only more than 60 square meters. Chen Lian actually doesn't care about the house, it will happen sooner or later. Chen Lian's idea in this life is very simple. He wants to swim in the muddy waters of the entertainment industry, and, by the way, discuss art with female stars. After a while, Chen Lian recovered his thoughts and remembered that his second uncle in Yangcheng had sent him a registered letter. When he opened it, he saw that it was a remittance slip and a letter sent by his second uncle. Seeing the numbers on the remittance slip instantly made Chen Li feel at ease. The living expenses and tuition fees for the next 2 years were settled. There are more than 36,000 in total, which is a real household of 10,000 yuan. Chen Lian does not have high material needs, but he also understands that money makes heroes brave. This money came from when his second uncle came to visit him from Yangcheng last year. His second uncle asked Chen Lian to give him all the family money to start business. It sounds like Chen Lian is helping his second uncle, but in fact it is his second uncle who is helping Chen Lian. Chen Lian opened the letter again. The letter was written by his cousin, and he asked her a lot about her welfare. Finally, he asked Chen Lian if he had obtained the certificate from Nortel. After reading the letter, Chen Lian did not reply immediately. He would just answer the phone call tomorrow. The first priority now is to prepare for the audition. Chen Lian put on a very old long-sleeved shirt and went out. After going to the post office to settle the remittance, he went to Wangfujing Street to buy clothes. The audition film was a very niche, very pretentious, and very artistic film. The work of sixth-generation director Wang Xiao's Hawaii is extremely cold. Chen Lian has watched this movie twice and was very impressed. It's not that I think this movie is great, but because of Jia Hongsheng, who plays the leading actor. A very crazy artist cannot be described as a simple actor. Chen Lian went to the audition this time because he wanted to compete with Jia Hongsheng for the male lead. In terms of fame, Chen Lian couldn't compete with Jia Hongsheng. But Chen Lian is not completely without advantages, that is, he has watched the movie and knows what Wang Xiao's Hawaii is thinking. I also know how to better fit the characters in the movie, and I know exactly what kind of madman I want to play. In terms of acting skills, Chen Lian believes that he will not lose to Jia Hongsheng. He still has some confidence after acting in dramas for more than 10 years. It's just that Jia Hongsheng has slowly determined his acting style now. I wonder if his melancholic temperament will attract Wang Xiao's Hawaii. In a fashionably decorated clothing store on Wangfujing Street, Chen Lian shopped around and picked out a black turtleneck sweater, which he ordered 2 sizes larger. Chen Lian came out of the fitting room, looked at the hair in the mirror that he had not cut for 2 months, and brushed it casually. Even the long black hair cannot hide Chen Lian's handsome face, and his dark and deep eyes seem to be able to directly strike people's hearts. The salesperson next to him looked at Chen Lian intently, feeling his heart pounding. How could he be so handsome? The saleswoman put her legs together, and a poem suddenly appeared in her mind. The water flowed down 3,000 feet, which was like the Milky Way falling from the sky. A large black turtleneck sweater was put on Chen Lian, as if he was wearing a black robe, covering his whole body. Chen Lian turned to look at a blue knitted hat on the hanger, picked it up and put it on his head. At this moment, Chen Lian put away his loose and carefree temperament. Now he is about to transform and become a character in the movie. There is a huge gap between the character image in the movie and Chen Lian himself. If you want to win this role, you must enter the character state as soon as possible. The most exciting thing about being an actor is being able to experience different lives and expand your limited life. Chen Lian slowly adjusted his expression in front of the mirror, with the corners of his eyes looking down, his lips slightly pursed to appear thinner, and the muscles on his face tensed and then relaxed, slowly adjusting to the right state. In 2 minutes of adjustment, Chen Lian instantly changed from a sunny boy to a melancholy and lonely depressive patient. Are you okay? The waiter in the clothing store looked at Chen Lian worriedly. I don't understand why a man who was so cheerful just now suddenly becomes so deep and melancholy. His eyes are like black holes that people can't help but sink into. Chen Lian lowered his head and did not look at the waiter's face. He seemed to be immersed in his own world. How much? Chen Lian's deep voice was a little ethereal, like the echo of a dry and empty abdomen. $12 for the coat, $10 for the hat, $22 in total. Chen Lian didn't say anything when he heard it. He just took out a crumpled 50 yuan note from his pants pocket and handed it to the waiter. The pale and slender fingers formed a sharp contrast with the rough-edged banknotes. The waiter reached out to take the money, and the moment her fingertips ran across the back of Chen Lian's hand, she seemed to feel an icy chill. At this moment, she suddenly felt an impulse surge in her heart, wanting to go forward and hug this melancholy man, and cover him with her hot chest. For women, melancholy and handsome men have an irresistible fatal attraction. After the money was taken away by the waiter, Chen Lian lowered his head and glanced at himself in the mirror, then turned and left. Just throw away the old clothes and the like. The characteristics of the era are too distinct, and Chen Lian doesn't like them. He is very satisfied with his current state, but he still lacks a little feeling and is not angry enough. Most artists in the 1990s have been in this state for a long time. It seems that the beautiful sunshine has nothing to do with art. In fact, Chen Lian feels that the artists of this era have similar characteristics to Shamat more than 10 years later. I like to express loneliness, melancholy, and pain very externally, but one is really melancholy and the other is really empty. The stage has kicked off and the performance has officially begun. I've opened a new book. I've grown up this time, so don't scold me. Fringe artists in the entertainment industry. Author, Chizu de Xiaomao. Chapter 2. Chapter 2. The real performance is never on camera. Most artists seem dissatisfied with the world. There is always an anger and disappointment in my heart that others don't quite understand, and I want to confront and criticize the society and the world. In the movie Extreme Cold, the male protagonist Chile is such a person, a very paranoid painter and performance artist. In the movie, Chile and his teacher made an experimental art together, simulating burial on the beginning of autumn, simulating drowning on the winter solstice, symbolic cremation on the beginning of spring, and melting a huge piece of ice with his own body temperature on the summer solstice to simulate ice burial. Death. I want to use this to see what impact the death of an artist will have on society and his works. Unfortunately, this was a scam from beginning to end. The real performance art only started after Chile pretended to die. He hid in the dark and observed the world and the impact of his death on the world. Chile, who completed the simulated death, found that his death did not have any impact on the world. His paintings were not given meaning, and the tide did not rise because of the sacrifice of his life. His life ended meaninglessly. In desperation, Chile decided to complete his final performance art and ended his life on the autumn solstice. This is adapted from a true event. The current artistic atmosphere and artists have always been very fierce and brave, but they are far less elegant than later. In what form art should exist, it seems that it has different manifestations in every era, and it is impossible to say which one is better or worse. More than 20 years later, someone once said that today's art is too formal and superficial, seemingly elegant but has lost the tension that touches the soul. Chen Lian neither agrees nor denies this statement. The background of the times and the social environment are the decisive factors that determine the art form. The extremely cold audition location is in the West Village, and it is also very artistic, a kind of poverty art with the characteristics of the times. Chen Lian walked in the alley of West Village and felt a kind of intimacy from the bottom of his heart. The audition place was extremely shabby, with no place to sit. The white putty on the wall was peeling off, and the green color at the base of the wall seemed to be covered with a layer of white dust, making it much brighter. At this time, Wang Xiao's Huai was very poor and confused. Perhaps it was this poverty and confusion that made him write a script like Extreme Cold. People always think a lot when they are in trouble, and they also tend to explore and think a lot. It is very suitable to use it here if you are poor and think about changes. Before meeting Wang Xiao's Huai, Chen Lian first met Jia Hongsheng, who had long hair, was thin and depressed, and had a strong sense of melancholy and depression. Chen Lian looked at Jia Hongsheng leaning against the wall with headphones on. He seemed not very interested in anything and was just immersed in his own world. The music in the headphones was very loud, but he couldn't hear what song was playing in it. Jia Hongsheng also noticed Chen Lian and seemed to feel the same kind of atmosphere in Chen Lian. Chen Lian glanced at him but did not go up to talk to him. He now needed to immerse himself in the characters. This was his habit of acting in dramas in another world. Not many people came to audition today. After all, Wang Xiao's Hawaii is still banned. So when the movie was finished, Wang Xiao's Hawaii even wrote unknown in the line of director. Not many people will be interested in such an independent or underground film. 99% of people in the entertainment industry pursue fame and fortune, but Extreme Cold does not have these two things. But here is what Chen Lian wants. The fifth-generation director's movies are out of reach of Chen Lian, and current TV series will only choose famous actors. Only the sixth-generation directors who have just begun to emerge are suitable for a newcomer like Chen Lian. The audition process was not smooth. Several people who had entered before came out quickly. There was no performance or lines, and it seemed that life and death were determined by one glance. Wang Xiao's Hawaii was a little troubled. None of the actors who came to audition today were satisfied. They were either inexperienced extras or people who were too obsessed with fame and fortune and wanted to brush up their resumes. There is no one who really has the strength to fit the character's image. After seeing more than 10 people, Wang Xiao's Hawaii came out of the room and wanted to smoke a cigarette to relax. When he pushed open the door to the room and walked out, he spotted Chen Lian at a glance. A hint of surprise flashed in his eyes and he put down the cigarette in his hand. This kind of temperament fits the character of Chi Lei perfectly, but he looks a little too good looking. Chen Lian's current image is very consistent with the character image in his script, but Chen Lian looks a bit young. Wang Xiao's Hawaii walked towards Chen Lian, and when he glanced back, he was attracted by Jia Angshen's figure. At this moment, Wang Xiao's Hawaii felt as if he was favored by God. Chen Lian noticed that Wang Xiao's Hawaii wore black glasses and had a round face that did not look like an art film director at all. Wang Xiao's Hawaii walked up to Chen Lian and asked, "Are you here for the audition?" Hearing Wang Xiaoshui's question, Chen Lian raised his eyelids and said in a cold voice, "Yes." After hearing Chen Lian's answer, Wang Xiao's Hawaii turned to look at Jia Hongsheng and asked, "Hongsheng, you are here too?" Ye Jia Hongsheng took off his headphones and replied. His mental state was a little sluggish and he didn't seem to have slept well. After Wang Xiao's Hawaii looked back and forth between Chen Lian and Jia Hongsheng, he was a little happy and a little confused. In Wang Xiaoshui's opinion, these two people fit his script very well, and they were a little embarrassed for a while. Chen Lian's image is more suitable, but Jia Hongsheng is so famous that Wang Xiao's Hawaii doesn't know how to choose. If you really want to compare, Wang Xiao's Hawaii prefers Jia Hongsheng, but seeing Chen Lian's paranoid melancholy and a hint of aggressive resentment, Wang Xiao's Hawaii hesitates. Wang Xiaoshui's entanglement was seen by Chen Lian, who put his hands in his pockets and said nonchalantly, "Am I suitable? If not, I will leave." Chen Lian's open-mindedness and casualness made Wang Xiao's Hawaii stunned for a moment, and then he said, "You are very suitable, and Jia Hongsheng is also very suitable. I am a little confused." Chen Lian turned his head to look at Jia Hongsheng and found that he had no mood swings. He just stood there with his eyes wandering, not knowing what he was thinking. Wang Xiao's Hawaii hesitated for a while and said, "Come and try the show. Hongsheng will come too." Jia Hongsheng hummed and walked to Wang Xiaoshui's side. Chen Lian raised his eyelids and followed Wang Xiao's Hawaii into the room. It was said to be a trial, but it was actually just a few people sitting together and chatting. It was neither formal nor serious, more like a get-together with friends in the afternoon. There were not many people in the room, including Chen Lian and Jia Hongsheng. There were only 5 people. Of course there is no need to mention Wang Xiao's Hawaii, and the other 2 are assistant director Li Huitong and a producer with gold-rimmed glasses, whose name is very interesting, Shuqi. It's not the female star Shuqi. This Shuqi is a director in Hong Kong, and Shuqi has also filmed his movies. Several people in the room seemed to have forgotten about the actors outside who were still waiting for auditions, and sat together smoking and chatting. There was only one window in the small room, and the air was not circulated well. Smoke quickly filled the entire room, but the people were very talkative. The topics discussed in the room were also very interesting, not related to movies, but about performance art and conceptual art. The content of the conversation was about the performance artists in the East Village, especially when talking about Zhang Huan. Wang Xiao's Huai was a little excited and was very enthusiastic about Zhang Huan's performance art. Chen Lian didn't express too many opinions, and Jia Hongsheng also didn't talk much. The person who talked the most was Wang Xiao's Huai, who seemed to have great enthusiasm. He talked about some of the performance art he had seen in the East Village, and there was a strong desire for expression in his words. Perhaps it is this strong desire for expression that makes Wang Xiao's Huai write extremely cold scripts. The form of performance art is an art with strong impact. If you see it with your own eyes, you will be very touched, but this touch often dissipates quickly, and only those with sensitive hearts will be deeply affected. Wang Xiao's Huai seems to be this kind of person, who can easily grasp inner emotions and amplify them. This quality is rare and must be possessed by those who engage in art. After chatting for a while, Wang Xiao's Huai probably realized that his purpose today was not to chat, so he turned to look at Chen Lian and Jia Hongsheng and asked them what they thought of performance art. Chen Lian was sitting on the chair. He felt that the vertical back of the chair was making him uncomfortable and he had to straighten his back. Hearing Wang Xiaoshui's question, Chen Lian raised his head, glanced at him and pointed at himself. Wang Xiao's Huai was reminded by Chen Lian and noticed Chen Lian's weird sitting posture. His back was straight, his head was lowered and he was looking at his toes. His left leg was crossed over his right leg to form a right triangle. The whole person's posture looks extremely strange, extremely awkward, but also has a sense of beauty. Chen Lian said at this time, "Now I still need a chain to tie me to the back of the chair. I will be surrounded by a huge glass cage and placed on Wangfujing Street. This is a performance art." When Jia Hongsheng heard Chen Lian's words, his eyes immediately lit up, and he said with some excitement, "Do you compare the chair to society or a system? Glass is the indifference and alienation of human feelings. He is a really sensitive person." You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Fringe artists in the entertainment industry. Author, Chizu de Xiaomao. Chapter 3. Chapter 3:3. Only by observing can you experience. Do you compare the chair to a society or an institution? The glass represents the indifference and alienation of human feelings. Chen Lian patted the chair vigorously and said, "You can understand it no matter how you interpret it. This kind of chair that is extremely uncomfortable to sit on is like a dilemma of the times and individuals. I hate it and want to be more comfortable, but I have to accept it or fight it, either accept it or be corrected. In fact, no one pays attention to the suffering of others. It doesn't make much difference whether there is glass or not." After listening to Chen Lian's explanation, Jia Hongsheng narrowed his eyes and asked, "Have you ever done similar performance art? I think this is a good theme, maybe we can dig deeper." "Maybe, but I don't like it," Chen Lian replied lightly, turned to Wang Xiao's Huai and asked, "Are you still struggling?" "I don't have much time today." Wang Xiao's Huai glanced at Jia Hongsheng and was a little hesitant because Chen Lian's appearance was too handsome and it didn't match the Qi he imagined. "We have made a decision, this role belongs to you," Shu Qi suddenly said. Shu Qi didn't know Jia Hongsheng well. In comparison, he was more inclined to Chen Lian. Both the image and the interpretation of performance art were very interesting. Wang Xiao's Huai opened his mouth without refuting, and acquiesced to the decision. Anyway, both of them were fine. Chen Lian looked up, then nodded and said, "Okay, please give me the script. I will be here on time when the camera starts." "Aren't you going to talk about remuneration?" Shu Qi asked curiously. Chen Lian took a look at the simple decoration in the room, shook his head and said, "You have no money, and I don't care. It's not much anyway." Shu Qi was a little helpless. The crew really didn't have much money, and the salary could only be a few hundred yuan or less at most. Chen Lian knew how much remuneration he could get, so he didn't really care. Talking about remuneration at the beginning was just cliché. Even haggling like buying groceries can't increase the pay, because the crew itself has no money. An hour later, Chen Lian left the extremely cold audition location and strolled through the alleys of the West Village. He wanted to observe the characters and find a teacher to learn oil painting. The location of the West Village is very remote and shabby, but it has a strong artistic atmosphere. Paints of various colors can be seen everywhere on the walls, but there are no complete paintings, and graffiti art has not yet become popular in the capital. From a distance, it looks more like the walls are covered with moss and flower vines, and the pastoral atmosphere is stronger than the street atmosphere. If you knock on any door here, what comes out may be a painter covered in paint or a sculptor with a carving knife in his hand. It's just that it's a bit too shabby here, with old houses and industrial waste everywhere. The West Village is a bit quiet during the day, and artists seem to like to go out at night. Chen Lian walked in the alleys of West Village, imagining how the artists living here lived. This is crucial for him to experience the character. Chen Lian is not keen on performance art, and his chat with Wang Xiao's Hawaii and others is just his performance. Before coming to the audition, he assumed the identity of an artist. This performance was very successful and he won the role. However, it is not that simple to truly act as a performance artist. This is a group of different people. Chen Lian needs to have a deep understanding of the thoughts and hearts of such people, otherwise the performance will only be superficial. This is also the reason why Chen Lian didn't speak much during the audition today. Extreme Cold was not a very successful movie. It had no box office and no awards. It was not even possible to have money for post-production work until 1996. But this is an opportunity for Chen Lian to enter the attention of the sixth generation of directors. Wang Xiao's Hawaii is the first independent filmmaker among the sixth generation of directors in China, and he is a certain representative among this group. The title Seven Gentlemen was still very popular in the later domestic literary and artistic film circles. Chen Lian is currently following a painter, observing him secretly. He is tall but very thin, and his normal-sized jeans look like bucket jeans with a lot of paint remaining on them. What caught Chen Lian's attention the most was his hair. It was very long and dirty, with strands stuck together. It was very similar to the famous street attraction in Europe and America, the homeless man. But Chen Lian noticed his eyes, and his slender eyes were shining with excitement. There are many such people in West Village now, but there will be very few such people in more than 10 years. Artist gathering places like West Village, East Village, Songchuang, or Huazhuang will be in the economic development in a few years. Die under the torrent. Then it becomes a consumer product and re-enters the capital, continuing to contribute to economic development. Chen Lian remembers that he in another world visited the 798 art district once in 2015. At that time, most of the people doing art were fake artists wearing avant-garde and fashionable clothes. Their expressions are very aloof and maverick, as if they separate themselves from the world. They may look like artists but in reality most people are just pretending. In Chen Lian's opinion, it was more like a very childish performance and disguise, or a very low-level show-off. The group of people more than 10 years later are far less pure than the group of people now. Chen Lian followed the man until he came to the courtyard he rented. There were 4 or 5 rooms in the courtyard. There was also a table in the middle of the courtyard with leftover food and beer bottles from last night. The tall and thin man hurriedly crossed the yard, pushed open a wing on the west side and walked in. It seems that there are several people living here, most likely painters who graduated from Kaffa. Chen Lian followed him into the courtyard and saw that the tall and thin man had not closed the door, so he walked to the door of the room and looked over. The tall and thin man sat on a pony, took out a paintbrush from the bucket and rubbed it on his pants. The turpentine instantly soaked his pants. The unique smell of turpentine immediately appeared in Chen Lian's nasal cavity, and it seemed that even the air began to become artistic. The tall and lanky man picked up the palette, dipped a few dips in a pile of colorful paints, and then began to apply them to the blank canvas. Chen Lian leaned against the door and watched him draw, but he didn't see what he wanted to draw yet. Chen Lian is not curious either. He has no interest in paintings. His attention is more on people. The tall and lanky man was really into it, and the excitement shining in his eyes was even a bit dazzling. Chen Lian squinted his eyes and observed carefully, and then found that his body was shaking slightly, but his right hand holding the brush was very steady. The brush strokes on the canvas are not affected in the slightest. This is entering a kind of self-world and devoting yourself wholeheartedly. Chen Lian felt that he was very lucky. The randomly selected passers-by were in this state, which provided him with a good observation object. Just when Chen Lian was observing carefully, a round and white arm suddenly appeared on his shoulder. "Friend Lao Zhao? He has started a new painting, and the colors are very lively." A hoarse voice appeared in Chen Lian's ear, with a hint of laziness in his tone. Chen Lian turned around and saw a girl with short hair, a small face but a plump figure. Wearing a hand-painted white short-sleeved shirt, with red marks on her face from sleeping, she looks sexy and cute. Chen Lian turned his head, and Bo Qing saw his face, and his tired eyes immediately brightened up. "Hello." Chen Lian said hello, then turned his head and continued to watch old Zhao's creation. Such a character state is rare, and Chen Lian needs to carefully understand it. Bai Qing's arm was still on Chen Lian's shoulders, and his body's center of gravity was tilted towards Chen Lian, and he looked at Lao Zhao in the room. Old Zhao is seeking transformation recently, but the process is very difficult. Realism has a great impact on him. Bai Qing leaned on Chen Lian and sniffed his nose without hesitation, trying to identify this man through his smell. It smells good, but the smell of new clothes is a bit too strong, and there is no oil paint smell. Chen Lian didn't reply, just looked at Lao Zhao in the room quietly. Perhaps there is new inspiration or a new understanding of a certain artistic concept. Lao Zhao was very involved, and the brush in his hand gradually became wanton, and the colors became bolder and bolder. He seemed to have successfully got rid of the influence of realism. It is difficult for such a person to perform. If he exerts too much force, he will act like a madman, and if he exerts too much force, he will act like an idiot. Especially the bright light in the eyes and the excited mental state are very difficult to grasp. Bai Qing observed Chen Lian, put his face next to Chen Lian's ear and asked, "You are observing Lao Zhao, are you not his friend?" Chen Lian pulled the knitted hat on his head and covered his ears. Bai Qing shrank back, and the fingers on Chen Lian's shoulders pinched a thread on the black sweater and pulled it off. "The one who does plays or writes novels. Performance art." Chen Lian is adjusting his state and slowly entering the character state, and his identity is also deliberately vague. What theme? The value of life for marginalized artists. Our group of people is indeed quite marginal. How do you observe me? Fringe artists in the entertainment industry. Author, Chizu de Xiaomao. Chapter 4. Chapter 4. There is no shame in dedicating oneself to art. How do you observe me? Chen Lian was startled for a moment, then turned to look at the girl next to him, looked at it carefully and said, "It's not appropriate." "Why?" Bo Qing's eyes were full of curiosity. Chen Lian explained softly, "I want to observe men. Female artists have no reference value for me." "Hey, Are there men and women? You are discriminating. Bai Qing curled his lips, with a stubborn look in his eyes. Fortunately, there is no women's rights in China at this time, otherwise Chen Lian's remarks just now may be misunderstood. Chen Lian looked at Bai Qing's eyes and said, "It has nothing to do with gender discrimination, it's just that my theme this time is related to men." Bai Qing raised his eyebrows when he heard this, obviously not convinced by Chen Lian's rhetoric. For marginalized people like us, the only difference between men and women is whether you go to the left or right when going to the public toilet, so there is no difference between men and women, unless your theme is related to sex. Chen Lian looked back at the girl who spoke so boldly, thought about it carefully and said, "It's okay, but why should you be the subject of observation? I have a plan. I will be your observation object and you will be my model. I have no money to hire a model. I have had this inspiration for a long time and have been waiting for a suitable model. I think you are very suitable." Bai Qing spread his hands and stated his predicament and plans very straightforwardly. "What kind of model?" "It's just what you think." "Oh, don't even think about it. There is no shame in dedicating oneself to art. Chen Lian understands this in another world. But the premise is that it is really for art, not for some dark and dirty things." In order to better observe these people in Songchuan, Chen Lian agreed to Bai Qing's exchange. Or maybe Chen Lian was too involved in taking on the role of himself and felt that this was something interesting and worth trying. Bai Qing will become the object of his observation, and he will become Bai Qing's model and student. After Chen Lian agreed, Bai Qing excitedly pulled Chen Lian to his room. Looking at the impatient Bai Qing, Chen Lian suspected for a moment that she didn't want to be a model, or that kind of model. Bai Qing's room was not big, with almost no furniture except for a bed. There was an open suitcase scattered on the floor, which was full of clothes. The air was still filled with the smell of turpentine and oil paints, and the newspapers taped to the walls had turned yellow and peeled off. There was a brazier placed in front of the bed, and the charcoal fire inside was almost extinguished. The temperature in the capital was very low after dark in March. There was an easel placed in front of the only window in the room, with a painted human body on it. It was a plump female lying on the bed in an enchanting posture. Chen Lian took a closer look and found that the person in the painting seemed to be Bai Qing himself. "How's it going? Does it look good?" Bai Qing asked, standing next to Chen Lian. Chen Lian looked at the painting and said, "It's very good, but the composition and background are not very nice." Hearing Chen Lian's comment, Bai Qing said with some regret, "I couldn't help it. I didn't have money to buy a new canvas at that time, so I scraped off the original painting and painted it again." "Is it so difficult for you?" Chen Lian didn't expect that Bai Qing didn't even have the money to buy a canvas. Bai Qing pulled out a roll of canvas from under the bed, patted the dust on it and said, "That's why we are the marginalized people. This is my last canvas, so this creation is important, you know what I mean." Chen Lian was looking at Bai Qing's oil paint inventory, and turned to look at her after hearing her words. Bai Qing's eyes were firm and dejected with a little light. "Am I really suitable?" Chen Lian asked. "You need to take it off and have a look. If it doesn't fit, I'll put the canvas back on." Chen Lian was silent for a moment and said, "Okay." Bai Qing put the canvas on the bed, then found a roll of transparent plastic sheet from nowhere and waited for Chen Lian to take off his clothes. The large black sweater was thrown to the ground by Chen Lian, and the black jeans also fell to the ground as the belt was loosened. The metal belt buckle made a dull sound when it hit the lowest ground. Bai Qing walked around Chen Lian holding the transparent plastic sheet, and then said, "It's you. What to do next?" "What is your theme?" Chen Lian looked at Bai Qing and asked. Bai Qing said as he unfolded the transparent plastic sheet, "Death and rebirth." "I understand." Chen Lian stared at the transparent and smooth plastic sheet. Bai Qing spread a piece of plastic sheet on the ground and said, "Lie down on it, like a baby." Chen Lian walked barefoot to the plastic sheet, sat down and lay on his side on the ground, and then curled up like an unborn baby. The coldness of the ground reached Chen Lian through the plastic sheet, forming a sharp contrast with the baby wrapped in warm amniotic fluid. The pores on Chen Lian's skin were closed and the hairs stood up, and the cold chill was invading and consuming his body temperature. Bai Qing covered Chen Lian's body with the remaining plastic sheet in his hand, and then used gentle movements to apply the plastic to every inch of Chen Lian's skin. It's like being tightly surrounded and bound. After setting it up, Bo Qing moved the brazier towards Chen Lian, took 2 steps back and carefully looked at every inch of Chen Lian's body. Chen Lian opened his eyes and looked at Bai Qing. His eyes were like a newborn baby's curiosity and despair about the world. The momentary eye contact instantly ignited a strong desire to create in Bai Qing. At this moment, she felt that her soul was trembling. That's right. That's what it feels like. A baby out of amniotic fluid is curious and scared. It's you. You're the one I've been waiting for. Bai Qing was trembling with excitement, and goosebumps appeared on her exposed arms. At this moment, Bai Qing felt that Chen Lian and himself had reached soul resonance, and that look conveyed everything he wanted to express. Chen Lian was lying on the ground, looking through the transparent plastic at Bai Qing's expression. At this moment, he seemed to understand the vigorous desire in the artist's heart. Bai Qing couldn't wait to find a frame and nailed the canvas to it with trembling hands. Huh. 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 Chen Lian's breath spat on the plastic, a burst of white mist slowly blurred his face, and the temperature in his body slowly dropped as he exhaled. His body temperature was dropping, but Chen Lian felt that his heart was beating extraordinarily forcefully, like weeds growing crazily upwards among the rocks. Bo Qing picked up the easel and sat across from Chen Lian. He stared at Chen Lian with his eyes fixed on him, but he had already skillfully pulled out a paintbrush with his right hand. The palette is at Bo Qing's feet, with paint already poured on it. The soft brush stirs the brown paint, and then is lifted up to smear thick colors on the white canvas. Chen Lian curled up on the cold ground and stared at Bai Qing. As time passed, the curiosity in his eyes became less and less, replaced by a kind of cold despair. Bai Qing held several paintbrushes on her fingers. Her movements became slower and slower, but the light in her eyes became brighter and brighter. Chen Lian's cold pale body was in sharp contrast to Bai Qing's increasingly flushed complexion. One is approaching death, the other is approaching rebirth. The light in the room has dimmed. The moonlight shines on Chen Lian through the window, and the transparent plastic is emitting a white cold light. Unknowingly, the sky outside began to get brighter again, and the rising sun began to shine warmly on the house. The paintbrush in Bo Qing's hand has become the smallest model, and he is making detailed drawings on the canvas. When the last bit of white paint on the palette was used up and all the white on the brush was applied to the canvas, Bo Qing seemed to have lost all his strength and the brush in his hand fell to the ground. Bai Qing, who was slumped in the chair, was breathing heavily with a strange flush on his face, and looked at the painting on the canvas with blank eyes. After 14 hours, death and rebirth were completed, and all of Bai Qing's passion and desires were released at this moment. Tears fell uncontrollably from the corners of her eyes. At this moment, she felt like a person who had lost hope and chose to drown. She was terrified and helpless, longing for a hand to reach into the water and give her hope again. After more than 10 minutes, Bo Qing sat up and looked at Chen Lian, who was lying on the ground with his eyes closed. Bai Qing looked at Chen Lian under the transparent plastic, at his pale skin, powerful muscle lines, and angular facial features. The strong fear in his heart could no longer be controlled. Bai Qing stood up, grabbed the corners of his clothes with both hands and pulled them upward. The white short sleeves fell onto the palette without paint. Chen Lian, who was unconscious, felt that his body was gradually getting warmer, and his arms were filled with crazy desire like lava. He was plump, soft, wild, and gentle as water. Fringe artists in the entertainment industry. Author, Chizu de Xiaomao. Chapter 5. Chapter 5. The happy hour is over. New life and death. This is Bo Qing's theme. If you explore her paintings carefully, you will find that what she really wants to express is the process of death, not rebirth. The real new life comes when you look at the painting and understand it. Death is in the painting, new life is in your heart. Chen Lian squatted in front of the easel with his clothes on and looked carefully at himself in the painting. At this moment, he felt that the person in the painting was not Chen Lian, but Qi Lei. Bai Qing completed his painting, and Chen Lian also completed a performance art. Bai Qing handed over a half-cut cigarette from behind Chen Lian. The light blue smoke floated up in front of Chen Lian's eyes, and then slowly dissipated. Chen Lian squinted his eyes and raised his hand to hold the cigarette, then put it to his mouth and took a puff. When I finished this painting, do you know what I was thinking? Bo Qing said hoarsely. Chen Lian slowly exhaled a puff of smoke, feeling the warmth on his back. After a long time, he said, empty, suffocating despair. Bai Qing rubbed his face on Chen Lian's back, put his fingers into his thick hair, and said calmly like a machine, you must have felt it too. So you hummed me. I need new emotions and desires to fill my heart. Chen Lian took a long drag on the cigarette, and the fiery red sparks burned until the filter tip stopped. I want to go back. Where to go? Bo Qing hugged Chen Lian from behind. Go home. Then I'll go home with you. Chen Lian pressed the cigarette butt on the ground, raised his head and said, then I won't go back. Chen Lian could understand Bai Qing's state at this time, as if he was suddenly confused and frightened after fulfilling his ideal in life. The painting of death and rebirth almost exhausted all her enthusiasm. Without the belief that supports oneself, the whole person is like an empty shell. Although he can understand it, Chen Lian will not let himself become Bai Qing's support. The warm-up time is over, and now it's teaching time. Chen Lian stood up and said. Bai Qing took back his hand and said rather resentfully, you are so heartless. It's not love in the first place, Chen Lian replied calmly, not to mention that he was the one who suffered the loss. The temperature in March was very low, and Chen Lian felt that his newly warmed-up body was starting to get cold again. He looked at the dusty clothes on the ground, picked them up, shook them twice and put them on. Bai Qing sat on the bed and watched Chen Lian getting dressed, the admiration and greed in his eyes undisguised. You have a really good figure. You are the model that many painters dream of. Chen Lian stretched, turned to look at Bai Qing and said, he is still the lover that many women dream of. Bai Qing looked at the black turtleneck sweater covering Chen Lian's well-defined abdominal muscles, and then said softly, I really want to occupy you and let you be my model forever. We'll wait until you find creative inspiration again. Now pack up and go out to buy painting materials. For Chen Lian, lust cannot affect him. He is a man of faith and pursuit. Even when he looks at Bai Qing's plump and sexy figure, his eyes do not change much. Chen Lian was leaning against the door with his blue knitted hat pulled down very low, revealing only his eyes as he watched Bai Qing get dressed. Bai Qing took out a few clothes from her suitcase and put them on randomly, then raised her hand to smell them. Her expression was a bit disgusting. After a night of fun, she always wanted to show her best side. The clothes were clean, but the oil paint smell was a bit strong. But almost all her clothes are stained with this smell. This is the most unique perfume of the female painter. Chen Lian sniffed and said, the smell of turpentine is very good. Bai Qing walked up to Chen Lian and raised her hand to his nose. The smell of turpentine and oil paint was mixed with a faint smell of sweat. It suits your temperament very well, with an edge and decadence. Chen Lian smelled it and said. Bai Qing put down his hand and sighed, I don't like the smell now. It would be nice if I had a bottle of perfume. Chen Lian stood up straight and observed Bai Qing's expression for a while before saying, your current mental state is very suitable for me to observe. Bai Qing reached out to hold Chen Lian's arm, leaned into his ear and said, then just observe carefully. Chen Lian did not object to Bai Qing's intimate behavior. It was always difficult to treat soul and body separately. But now is not the time for lust. Chen Lian gently pushed Bai Qing's head away and said, "Let's go buy painting materials." Bai Qing didn't care when Chen Lian pushed her away, but she still pressed forward and smelled Chen Lian's neck. She was obsessed with the smell of Chen Lian. Bai Qing was as greedy as a child, and asked with curiosity in his smart eyes, "Why do you want to learn oil painting? Performance art does not require you to be able to paint. This is more in-depth. I like comprehensive exploration, but just observing doesn't make me empathize," Chen Lian explained. Bai Qing put his chin on Chen Lian's shoulder and said softly, "I like the words in-depth and comprehensive exploration, which can also make me feel the same. Stop your unhealthy desires, the fun times are over." There are many painting material stores near Songchuan. After eating a hot wonton meal, Chen Lian and Bai Qing bought a lot of painting materials and went back. From paper and pencils for sketching to 2 large bags of oil paints and canvas, Chen Lian would definitely not need so much when learning to paint. It was mainly for Bai Qing, a down-and-out painter who was so poor that he had to scrape off his previous paintings and repaint them. Prepare. It is no longer possible to describe Bai Qing as down and out. To be precise, it should be described as poverty-stricken. Bai Qing's only income comes from occasionally receiving orders for advertising paintings and doing wall paintings. However, this kind of wall painting income is small and unstable, and can only support her food problems. After returning with a bunch of things, Bai Qing's mental state was obviously much better. Shopping does make people feel happy, even if they are not selling luxury bags. In the eyes of people like Bai Qing, clothes and bags are far less attractive than canvas and paint. Chen Lian piled these painting materials in the corner of the room, then picked out a roll of Yamet's rough textured canvas and stuffed it under Bai Qing's bed. Use this roll of canvas when you have new inspiration. I hope you can use it soon. Bai Qing looked at Chen Lian's pure eyes and couldn't help but said, "It may take a long time. I have taken out the paint bottle now, and I may not be able to paint until I fill it up again." Chen Lian dusted off his hands and stood up, sat on Bai Qing's bed and lay down, looking at the dusty roof. "You need some new stimulation, and it might be good for you to go out for a walk." Bai Qing turned around and lay on Chen Lian's chest, listening to Chen Lian's heartbeat with his face turned sideways. "Like you to observe." The temperature on his chest made Chen Lian feel comfortable. He raised his hand and put it under his head and said, "Yes, I am also an empty bottle now, and I am working hard to draw nutrients from you. Now do you want to explore it in depth and fully? It will make you feel the same." Bai Qing's hand moved up on Chen Lian's chest, looking directly into Chen Lian's eyes and sniffing his face vigorously, and a blush quickly appeared on his fair skin. Chen Lian raised his eyes to look at Bai Qing, who was crawling on top of him. He couldn't help but reach out and gently grab her hair. The smell of turpentine from the black hair surrounded the tip of his nose. "I told you, happy hour is over and now it's teaching time. Do you want to start by painting eggs?" Bai Qing put his face against Chen Lian's and closed his eyes and said, "You have to learn to draw a circle first, like this." After that, he grabbed Chen Lian's hand and put it on his chest. Chen Lian allowed Bai Qing to hold his hand, but said with clear eyes, "I regret it now. Old Zhao will definitely not be like you." Hearing Chen Lian's words, Bai Qing stopped, biting his lip and trying to control his inner impulse. A trace of uneasiness flashed in his eyes. "You are really calm, no, you are cold-blooded." Chen Lian looked at Bai Qing, then raised his hand to smell the tip of his nose and said, "The smell of turpentine really suits you, but I'm not cold-blooded. I just don't like doing the wrong thing at the right time." Bai Qing got up from Chen Lian and knelt down on the bed. He said seriously, "You are too restrained and have no impulse or passion. You will not be able to learn oil painting. This is not restraint. I'm worried that you're in too deep." You know your current state very well. If you don't restrain yourself, I have to restrain myself for you. Chen Lian sat up from the bed, then found the pencil he just bought in the afternoon and slowly started sharpening it. Tiny sawdust drew an arc in the air, and then fell onto the charcoal fire in the brazier. After a while, green smoke ignited and floated between Chen Lian and Bai Cheng. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Fringe artists in the entertainment industry. Author, Chizu de Xiaomao. Chapter 6. Chapter 6:6. The end is also the beginning. The bright red coals in the brazier tirelessly release heat, and the rustling sound of the pencil across the paper seems particularly quiet. Chen Lian's slender fingers and the straight yellow wood pencil look particularly good together. Bai Qing squatted beside him and looked at the short, smooth lines on the drawing paper. For the first time, he felt that even the most basic and boring line exercises were particularly interesting. The main reason is that Chen Lian's fingers are very beautiful, the kind of beauty that makes people jealous. You are very talented, your hands are very steady, and you have good control over your pen. Chen Lian did not stop because of Bo Qing's praise, and the light gray lines continued to increase on the drawing paper. Bai Qing reached out and grabbed the pencil in Chen Lian's hand, and changed to another piece of drawing paper. I'll teach you perspective and the relationship between light and dark. Let's start with the cube. Maybe tomorrow you can try to copy the scenery. I'm not in a hurry, I hope to truly become a painter. Chen Lian looked at Bai Qing and said. No, you are really talented, there is no need to continue practicing lines. Bai Qing pasted the drawing paper, turned around and looked around the room, and then found a piece of blue brick as a still life. Almost no one except the school would buy a plaster cube home. However, the difference between the bricks is not big. Ignore the color and just look at the shape and light and shade. Chen Lian really wanted to learn oil painting. It would be too boring to live the same life again as before. Chen Lian feels like he is filming a very interesting movie now. The script is controlled by himself. In this movie, he can experience different fun. To sum it up in one word, it is wanton. Be curious about everything and try it yourself. Just like now, in order to make a movie, I come to the West Village to experience life and learn oil painting at the same time. Career and hobbies go hand in hand, perfectly implementing Chen Lian's life creed. 20 minutes later, Bai Qing looked at the painting on the drawing board with excellent modeling lines and light and dark relationships. He couldn't help but said to Chen Lian, "You are really a genius. I'm a little jealous. Don't be overly encouraging." I'm not an encouraging personality. Chen Lian put down the pencil in his hand and said. Bai Qing pulled a towel from the side and took Chen Lian's hand to wipe the pencil dust on his hand. This kind of considerate behavior is not in line with her character, she just wants to take advantage. Seeing his hands stained with pencil dust being wiped clean little by little, Bai Qing felt particularly comfortable. Chen Lian looked at the change in Bai Qing's expression and suspected that she had a potential hand fetish. Is the teaching time over? Bo Qing raised his head and looked at Chen Lian, his eyes watery. Chen Lian raised his hand and pinched Bai Qing's lips with his thumb, and chuckled, "You are like a cat now." Hearing this, Bai Qing stuck out his tongue and licked Chen Lian's finger, squinting his eyes and letting out a soft gasp similar to a cat's meow. The carbon in the brazier suddenly collapsed, and scarlet sparks flew out of the brazier and landed on the ground, creating dazzling sparks. A single spark can start a prairie fire, or it can ignite the most intense desires. A month and a half later. The weather is already very warm in April, and the sun shines into the house through the glass on the window, creating a halo on the bouquet of artificial flowers. The canvas in front of Chen Lian is covered with oil paint. The painting style is very good and the color combination is coordinated, but the technique is too immature and the shape is very problematic. The time is still too short. Chen Lian put down the paintbrush and inserted it into the turpentine bottle. Bai Qing came over and encouraged, "This is your first oil painting, which is already very good. You are very sensitive to colors and the combination is beautiful. Let's practice when we have time later." Chen Lian stood up, wiped his hands and turned to Bai Qing and said, "I'm leaving." "Well, remember to come back and see me." Bai Qing lit a cigarette, his voice was a little hoarse, and his expression was a little lonely in the blue smoke. Chen Lian reached out and took out the cigarette from Bai Qing's hand, threw it on the ground, raised his foot and crushed it out. "Smoke less, I like your voice, don't let it turn into an unpleasant cigarette voice." Bai Qing looked at Chen Lian and hugged him, calling his name softly. "Chen Lian, Chen Lian." Meeting by chance, the two of them were just passers-by in each other's lives. It was enough to have each other for more than a month, and now the time has come, which is the time to say goodbye. Chen Lian pulled up his hair to reveal his handsome face, then held Bai Qing's chin and looked into her reddish eyes and said, "Contact me if you need me to be a model." After saying that, Chen Lian waved to Bai Qing coolly and turned to leave. Looking at Chen Lian's leaving figure, Bai Qing couldn't tell what he was feeling in his heart for a moment. Was the relationship during this period of time an empty and lonely desire or love? Chen Lian was walking on the street with his hands in his pockets. After walking a few steps, he couldn't help but look back. After looking for a long time, he turned around and left. Some nostalgia is better left in memory. For more than a month, Chen Lian has been living in Bai Qing's rental house, studying oil painting with her and observing artists in the West Village up close. With in-depth understanding, Chen Lian found in Bai Qing the uneasiness, depression, and despair that Qi Lei had in the script. However, Bai Qing is much better than Qi Lei. One is confused by completing a painting that has been suppressed in his heart for a long time and fell into a blank period, and the other is confused and desperate with no direction or goal at all. Now that Chen Lian has completed the character observation, he has completely transformed into Qi Lei. The actor Chen Lian has disappeared, leaving only Qi Lei who can't find his direction in life. In order to prevent his condition from fluctuating, Chen Lian did not go home during this period. He was mainly worried that Uncle Qi in the hospital would kick him out of trouble. At the place where the last audition was held, Wang Xiao's Huai and Shu Qi were sitting and smoking. The camera and other actors were ready. "Why hasn't Chen Lian come yet?" Wang Xiao's Huai was a little anxious. It was hard to get so many people together today. If the male protagonist didn't come, how would the movie be shot? Shu Qi glanced at her watch and said, "It's only 9 o'clock now, the appointment time is 9:30, why are you in a hurry?" "I heard that this male protagonist is very handsome," Ma Xiaoqing, the heroine in the movie, asked curiously. "Very handsome, even more handsome than Li Ming," Shu Qi replied while taking a puff of cigarette. Ma Xiaoqing said with some disbelief, "It's not that exaggerated." Wang Xiao's Huai stamped out the cigarette butt and said, "It's not an exaggeration. In fact, I regret it a little now. It's not appropriate to be so handsome." Shu Qi glanced at Wang Xiao's Huai and said nothing. What bullshit theory is that being ugly is art? Among the actors in Extremely Cold, except for the two female characters who are good-looking, the other actors are hard to describe. If it weren't for the fact that she really had no money, Shu Qi would have wanted to change someone else. If she had known better, she wouldn't have made this movie with Wang Xiao's Huai. Nowadays, it's not easy for a director to find a handsome male lead, but he still dislikes it. I really don't know what he thinks. Art films can't do this. Ma Xiaoqing leaned against the wall, took out a pack of cigarettes from her jacket pocket, lit it and took a puff, saying, "What's wrong with being handsome? As long as you can act. I'm just afraid that I won't be able to act if I'm too handsome." Wang Xiao's Huai was a little worried. In more than a month, he regretted choosing Chen Lian. The role of Qi Lei is difficult to play. he has to perform turbulent emotions and struggles under the calm surface, which is really difficult for ordinary people to play. Shu-Chi said, "It's already this time, don't think too much, at least the image and temperament are consistent." At this time, Chen Lian walked in, wearing a two-piece suit, a loose and baggy white short-sleeved t-shirt over a black long-sleeved t-shirt. The bright side face of a girl is painted on the white t-shirt. This painting was painted by Bo Qing, telling Chen Lian not to forget her. In such weather, Chen Lian was wearing very thin clothes, and people with slightly weaker health might catch a cold. Chen Lian's appearance caused a brief silence in the room, and then Shu-Chi stood up and welcomed, "Lian is here." Chen Lian nodded to Shu-Chi and asked in a calm and numb voice, "Call me Chi-Lei when you join the set. When will the filming start?" Shu-Chi stopped in her tracks, looked at Chen Lian's dumb state, and then looked back at Wang Xiao's Huai with a look of disbelief in her eyes. It seems to be saying, "Are you sure he can't act well? He has been a director for many years, and he can clearly tell that Chen Lian's current state is completely different from the last time they met. Before, Chen Lian was just melancholy, but now he can feel the cold death temperament in him. This is already in play." Fringe artists in the entertainment industry. Author, Chizu de Xiaomao. Chapter 7. Chapter 7. A bit metaphysical. The small room was filled with the smell of tobacco, and the actors and staff sitting and standing all cast their eyes on Chen Lian, who stood out from the crowd. In addition to Chen Lian, there were 3 professional actors in the room, playing Chi-Lei's girlfriend, sister, and teacher respectively. They both stopped talking and only communicated their surprise through eye contact. They had all studied the script, and it felt like Chi-Lei had stepped out of the script. Chen Lian raised his head and looked at them, walked up to Ma Xiaoqing, and asked in a cold but not unfamiliar tone, "You are Xiao Yun?" Ma Xiaoqing took the cigarette out of her mouth in surprise. She was very surprised. She didn't know how he knew that the role he was going to play was Chi-Lei's girlfriend Xiao Yun. It was their first time to meet each other, and they didn't introduce themselves. What's more, she was not the only woman in the room. Why did she identify herself as Xiao Yun at a glance? "How do you know that I am Xiao Yun?" "No, I mean how do you know that I play Xiao Yun?" Ma Xiaoqing's tone was surprised and curious. Chen Lian raised his eyebrows slightly and said naturally, "Feeling." After Chen Lian greeted Ma Xiaoqing, he looked at Bai Yu, who played the role of sister, and shouted, "Sister." Chen Lian called out the roles played by 2 actors in the movie one after another, and everyone in the room was a little surprised. What surprised them even more was that Chen Lian then accurately identified who were actors and what roles they played in the movie. This feeling, no, this is already a terrifying intuition, quite weird and strange in mysticism. You must have found a monster. No, you are looking for a mentally ill person. Facing everyone's curiosity, Chen Lian's explanation was far-fetched. This is an actor's intuition. I can feel the familiarity and characteristics of you. Of course Chen Lian would not say that he had watched the movie. This would be too metaphysical. This explanation is becoming more and more mysterious, but no one can figure out the specific reason, so they can only choose to reluctantly believe it. At the same time, he made up his mind to stay away from this strange man in the future. Chi-Lei was a mentally unstable person. Chen Lian now seems to them to be an abnormal figure like Chi-Lei. It would be bad if one day he couldn't think about it and took him away with him. Wang Xiaoshui's small eyes also had a look of disbelief. Is this an intuition brought about by being too deeply involved in the drama, or is it a strange mental disorder? Shu-Chi also felt that Chen Lian's current state was a bit strange. "Lian?" Shu-Chi was about to ask, but suddenly remembered that Chen Lian didn't allow them to call her by her real name, so she immediately changed her words, "Chi-Lei, what have you been doing lately?" Chen Lian put his hands in his pockets, his long hair covering his eyes like a piece of wood. It took him a long time to answer. Draw. When Chen Lian didn't speak, several people in the room didn't speak and just waited quietly. They seemed to be affected by the aura of Chen Lian, and they were deeply afraid that what they said would affect Chen Lian. After Chen Lian finished speaking, everyone took a breath quietly, almost forgetting that they could breathe. Chen Lian's aura does not feel oppressive, nor does it make people nervous. It's just that nervous feeling that made everyone feel a little scared, and they didn't dare to meet Chen Lian's eyes. Non-professional actors are a little better and don't feel deeply, but professional actors and directors feel deeply. Most art workers are very sensitive and have a stronger sense of things. They felt that Chen Lian would be obsessed with committing suicide or going crazy at any time, and they did not dare to speak in a low voice. Looking at everyone's surprised expressions, Chen Lian took out a cigarette case from his pocket, lit a cigarette and said slowly, "I've been looking for character status recently, I'm sorry to scare you." Everyone in the room looked at each other, they were really scared. But Shu Qi was the first to react. She turned to look at Wang Xiao's Huai with surprise and excitement on her face. It was so profitable to find such a good actor for such a movie. Wang Xiao's Huai also breathed a sigh of relief, squeezed out a smile and said, "I understand, but if you get too involved in the drama, will you?" Wang Xiao's Huai didn't finish what he said, but everyone understood what he wanted to express. Their eyes were all focused on Chen Lian, worried that he would not be able to come out like Chi Lei in the movie. Chen Lian frowned slightly, took a puff of cigarette and replied, "Don't worry, I have my own methods and I won't be affected." Hearing Chen Lian's answer, everyone breathed a sigh of relief. Movies are movies, and we don't want to make a movie and kill people. Shu Qi looked at Chen Lian with admiration and said, "You are really amazing. There are few actors like you." Chen Lian doesn't take kindly to such compliments. Isn't it the most basic thing to be an actor? When does it start? Chen Lian asked as he put out the cigarette butt. Wang Xiao's Huai glanced at the time and said, "Don't worry, the preparations haven't been done yet." Chen Lian nodded, understanding the fact that this messy and rudimentary non-professional crew was inefficient. While everyone was preparing, Ma Xiaoqing walked up to Chen Lian and tentatively introduced herself, "My name is Ma Xiaoqing. How are you feeling now?" Chen Lian raised his head and looked at Ma Xiaoqing and said, "I'm a little inexplicably excited, but also a little scared." Ma Xiaoqing could understand why Chen Lian was excited, but where did he start with the fear? "Why are you scared? Are you afraid that you won't perform well?" Ma Xiaoqing's round eyes were filled with inquiry and curiosity. Chen Lian chuckled lightly, but the corners of his mouth curved downward slightly. His eyebrows were raised slightly and he looked at Ma Xiaoqing and said, "Chi Lei is the one who is excited and frightened, not me." Ma Xiaoqing was stunned for a moment, and became more and more suspicious that Chen Lian was too involved in the drama and was mentally disturbed. But then I thought about it and suddenly understood the meaning of Chen Lian's words. Before doing performance art, Chi Lei was excited, but at the same time he was also terrified, worried that his art was worthless. Ma Xiaoqing looked at Chen Lian's overly handsome face, and suddenly felt that this man was not neurotic, but that his level was too high for ordinary people to understand. After changing her concept, Ma Xiaoqing felt that Chen Lian was not scary at all, but had a very melancholic and profound charm. Chen Lian didn't care about Ma Xiaoqing's unscrupulous look, he just waited quietly for Wang Xiao's Huai to complete the preparations as soon as possible. After waiting for 2 cigarettes, Wang Xiao's Huai finally made preparations, walked up to Chen Lian and said, "It's time to start. Let's shoot the scenes at home today." Chen Lian raised his eyebrows, looked at Wang Xiao's Huai and said, "Let's shoot the first 3 simulated deaths first. It will help me find the feeling faster, and the logic and emotions of the characters will be smoother." Wang Xiao's Huai was speechless. "Are you still looking for feelings after being like this? After experiencing the previous death simulation, I can find out the hesitation and struggle when facing the last ice burial, and truly become Chi Lei. Chen Lian took the initiative to explain. The story in the movie begins before the last ice burial. During the process, the dissuasion of family and friends made Chi Lei hesitate to continue with the ice burial. Finally, after being stimulated by several things, Chi Lei finally returned to the ice burial. Select continue. Chen Lian wanted to experience the death simulation first like the character, and truly become Chi Lei in the movie, and find the feeling of hesitation and struggle. Wang Xiao's Hui couldn't help but take out a pack of Zongnanhai from his work vest pocket and lit it. There was hesitation in his eyes under the round glasses. If Chen Lian's current state is not close to Chi Lei's, he really wants to start filming from the burial, but now he is worried about whether it will affect Chen Lian's mental state later. Movies are movies, reality is reality. Under the blue smoke, Wang Xiaoshui's worry was keenly captured by Chen Lian. Don't worry, I have my own methods and know what I'm doing, Chen Lian explained. Looking at Chen Lian's firm eyes, Wang Xiao's Hui dropped the cigarette in his hand and scarlet sparks flew on the ground. Snapped. Wang Xiao's Hui raised his foot and stepped on the cigarette butt, making up his mind and saying, "Okay, let's start with the burial." Fringe artists in the entertainment industry. Author, Chizu de Xiaomao. Chapter 8. Chapter 8. Simulated Burial. In the wasteland on the outskirts of the capital, Wang Xiao's Hui and his men were digging a hole. The moist soil, with the smell of rotten grass roots, was dug out by the flying shovel, and fell on the tender green grass in an arc. Chen Lian leaned against the tree and watched quietly, as if watching his own tomb taking shape bit by bit. Ma Xiaoqing, who came with her, was holding her camera and couldn't help but press the shutter when looking at the quiet Chen Lian. Click. When the shutter clicked, Chen Lian turned to look at Ma Xiaoqing, smiling melancholy. Ma Xiaoqing really felt that Chen Lian was like a martyr, quietly experiencing the tranquility before death. This made her a little worried. The simulated burial would bury Chen Li's security department underground, and accidents were very likely to occur. As if sensing Ma Xiaoqing's worry, Chen Lian said softly, "Don't worry, there won't be any danger. With so many people here, it's difficult to think of an accident." "Is it necessary to do this?" Ma Xiaoqing couldn't help but ask. Ma Xiaoqing was born as a child star. She has been in the industry for many years and has appeared in many movies and TV series. Last year, she also played BJ Man in New York with Zhang Wen. She has worked with so many big-name actors, but she has never seen an actor like Chen Lian. Chen Lian smoothed his hair and replied seriously, "Yes, although the performance is fake, the emotion must be real." Chen Lian never chooses to be perfunctory when it comes to acting. An actor must have enough awe. Ma Xiaoqing was in a daze. She had heard someone say this several years ago, and she had almost forgotten this after acting for so long. What a crazy good actor. Ma Xiaoqing was unwilling to describe people like Chen Lian as crazy. The pit was dug quickly, and those responsible for it were all sweating from exhaustion. Especially Wang Xiao's Hui, who had a relatively round figure, was already slumped on the ground and gasping for air. Chen Lian took out a headband made in advance from his pocket, with the words "Today is the beginning of autumn" written on it. Ma Xiaoqing came over and stretched out her hand and said, "Let me tie it for you." Okay. Chen Lian handed the hairband to Ma Xiaoqing, and his eyes began to ignite with anticipation and excitement. The spring sunshine was very warm, but Chen Lian's body began to tremble uncontrollably. Ma Xiaoqing was now behind Chen Lian, looking at his slightly trembling shoulders, feeling an indescribable shock in her heart. They are all actors. Why is there such a big gap? Why is the ability to empathize so strongly? How do you find this state? When Ma Xiaoqing tied the hair tie, Chen Lian gradually calmed down and began to suppress the excitement in his heart. This energy cannot be released now, it must be suppressed, held back, and slowly pass away in the heart until it returns to calm numbness. After Wang Xiao's Huai sat by the pit and rested for a while, he turned to look at Chen Lian, who was already prepared. Li Chi Lei, are you ready? As soon as the word Li came out, Wang Xiao's Huai changed his name to Chi Lei, but he was still a little uncomfortable with it. All right. Chen Lian adjusted his breathing, walked to the pit and jumped down. Let's start. Wang Xiao's Huai got up from the ground and began to feel excited. The crew of Extreme Cold is very simple. A camera and a very simple sound recording equipment are all the equipment of the crew. Photographer Yang Shu followed Wang Xiaoshui's request and set up a camera directly opposite Chen Lian. Wang Xiao's Huai checked the picture and composition and called to start. There are no housekeeping, no boarding, no lights, no radio. Everything is so simple that one can't help but suspect that this is a group of enthusiasts self-entertainment. But even so, everyone still put in great enthusiasm, especially Chen Lian. The soft and moist soil, carrying the smell of rotten soil, gradually buried Chen Lian. Chen Lian felt the oppression and restraint brought by the soil, as if his life was falling into the dark underground bit by bit. The soil gradually filled up to Chen Lian's shoulders, leaving only his neck and head exposed. The words "Today is the beginning of autumn" written on the hairband on his forehead also gradually became prominent in the camera screen, forming a very strong contrast with the buried Chen Lian. The beginning of spring means the growth of all things, but Chen Lian is burying himself. The friends who were responsible for filling the soil slowed down at this time, fearing that Chen Lian would be buried if they continued to fill the soil. Chen Lian raised his head slightly and said with short breath, "Continue until you drown me." The dirt continued to fly, and it became difficult for Chen Lian to breathe. His vision was gradually submerged by the dirt, until he completely fell into darkness. There was green grass beside the winding river, and Chen Lian shook off the dirt from his body. During the 2 minutes of being buried, Chen Lian really felt like he was going to die. The desperate suffocation feeling spread throughout the body, making the muscles uncontrollably spasm. Chen Lian was a little confused now. After dusting off the dirt on his body, he sat on the grass in a daze. After experiencing the burial, he did not feel the shrinking and entanglement of Chi Lei in the script. There was only confusion in his mind, and he wanted to continue trying. This state of mind deviated greatly from the character, or to be precise, it deviated from Wang Xiaoshui's script. Chi Li in the real incident should be in the same state as Chen Lian now. He didn't continue to simulate death out of despair. It's because I'm confused and don't know where my direction is and whether what I'm doing now makes any sense, so I continue to try water burial and cremation. Finally, complete all simulated deaths and hide in the dark to carry out real performance art. But before the last item of ice burial, Chi Lei began to hesitate and struggle, not understanding the meaning of continuing. Chen Lian looked at the slowly flowing river in front of him, took out a crumpled cigarette case from his pocket, and slowly lit a cigarette. Wang Xiao's Huai cleaned up the dug earth pit and walked over, stood next to Chen Lian and lit a cigarette. "What does it feel like?" Chen Lian smoked a cigarette and looked at Xia He in front of him and said, "You wrote the script wrong. After completing the first simulated death, I only felt empty and confused, and I wanted to continue trying to find the real meaning." Wang Xiao's Huai wiped off the dirt on his clothes, sat cross-legged next to Chen Lian and said, "It's not wrong." Only after Chi Lei completed 3 simulated deaths did he want to get into trouble. The comfort of his sister and girlfriend played a big role. I didn't describe the first 3 simulations in detail in the script, so some deviations are normal. This seemed to make sense. Chen Lian thought for a while and said, "Then go ahead and finish the water burial and cremation today." Wang Xiao's Huai was worried about Chen Lian's mental state and deliberately joked, "It just so happens that I can take a bath and then warm up by the fire." This joke is not funny at all, and Chen Lian did not give proper feedback. Wang Xiao's Huai was a little embarrassed, scratched his head and turned around to do the preparations. Ma Xiaoqing, who had been eavesdropping, couldn't help laughing until Wang Xiaohui left. Compared with Wang Xiaoshui's embarrassing joke, the reactions of the two of them just now were really funny. Chen Lian turned to look over, and Ma Xiaoqing's smile was immediately stopped by Chen Lian's eyes. He looked at Chen Lian awkwardly and said, "Why are you like a block of ice?" The April spring breeze in the capital was still chilly, and Ma Xiaoqing felt that the chill on Chen Lian was stronger than the late spring cold. Chen Lian turned to look at Ma Xiaoqing, smiled slightly, and explained, "I can also be passionate, but this movie doesn't require it." Ma Xiaoqing's round eyes lit up, and she wondered what Chen Lian was like outside of movies, or to be precise, outside of his role as an actor. A humble gentleman? Or is it humorous? However, the current Chen Lian didn't seem to have a passionate personality, and Ma Xiaoqing's curiosity was immediately piqued. Then what does the real you look like? You'll find out when the movie is finished. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Fringe artists in the entertainment industry. Author, Chizu de Xiaomao. Chapter 9. Chapter 99. The crew obsessed with male sex. By the river in early spring, the cold wind was biting and the humidity that had not yet dissipated made people feel uncomfortable. Only the ripples gently rippled on the silent river. The sky was gray, and it looked like a thick black cloud pressing deeply over the river. Such an environment makes people feel depressed and creates a dull atmosphere. Wang Xiaohui held a cigarette in his hand and walked to the river to test the water temperature. He said with some worry, "The temperature is a bit low. It's easy to catch a cold if you go into the water." The current temperature in Beijing is less than 15 degrees, and the temperature in the water is relatively lower. Chen Lian came over and stretched out his hand to try it, and then said, "This temperature is fine. I'm in better health. Are you sure it's okay? You can wait until the weather gets warmer before taking pictures." Shu Qi came over and said. Chen Lian shook his head and said, "No need, I want to finish filming today." "Okay then." Shu Qi frowned slightly, feeling a little worried. As a Xiangjiang native, she rarely experienced the cold in the north, let alone took off her clothes and went into the water on such a cold day. Wang Xiaohui had almost figured out Chen Lian's character by now, and knew that it was useless to persuade him, so he stood up and called the photographer to come over and prepare. Try to be able to finish the photo in one go without having to suffer the pain of repeatedly entering the water. Chen Lian moved his body, and then took off his shirt under the watchful eyes of the crew. Chen Lian's powerful upper body was exposed in the air, and his muscles were clean and strong. The people around him naturally focused their attention on his broad shoulders and two strong arms. Every muscle under the skin, which is fairer than wheat, shows a wild vitality. Several ladies in the crew looked at every inch of Chen Lian's body, and finally stopped at his six-pack abdominal muscles. His abdominal muscles seemed to be made of bronze, with straight lines. There is no doubt that his abs are the most attractive part of his body. Wang Xiaohui, who is also a man, was also attracted by Chen Lian's strong figure. The cigarette in his mouth was burning tightly, and the blue-gray ash was about to fall off. Women love to see muscles, and so do men. Just like men are lustful, women are also lustful. Human nature loves beauty, which is engraved in human DNA in primitive society. In the past month or so, Chen Lian had tried his best to get rid of the scale and wanted to fit the character of Chile. "It's just that my muscles were well trained before, but now they still look toned." Chen Lian didn't care that everyone's eyes were wandering on his body, he still calmly unfastened his belt and took off his jeans. "Gudong." I don't know who couldn't help but swallowed a mouthful of saliva, which was particularly obvious in this quiet suburb. Everyone who came back to their senses was a little embarrassed, but their eyes were still fixed on Chen Lian. It wasn't until he was awakened by the sound of a camera shutter that he looked away and started busying himself. Ma Xiaoqing, who took the photo, looked at Chen Lian's powerful and wild muscles and couldn't help but pick up her camera to record the scene. Chen Lian turned his head and glanced at Ma Xiaoqing, then said, "Don't leak the photo." "Okay," Ma Xiaoqing responded, then ran to Chen Lian, her eyes passed over his abdominal muscles, and finally stopped on his face, and asked shyly, "Can I take 2 more pictures?" Chen Lian looked into Ma Xiaoqing's eyes and nodded. At this time, Wang Xiao's Huai also came over and couldn't help but patted Chen Lian on the shoulder and said, "How do you practice like this? Do you usually exercise?" When Ma Xiaoqing saw Wang Xiaoshui's movements, she felt a little moved in her heart. She wanted to reach out and feel Chen Lian's abdominal muscles, but the girl's reserve made her embarrassed to do so. "However, I was thinking about whether there are any intimate scenes in the script, and I can take action when the time comes." Chen Lian didn't notice Ma Xiaoqing's expression, looked at Wang Xiao's Huai and said, "No, I practice boxing." "No wonder, but I didn't expect you to know martial arts." "What kind of boxing do you practice?" Wang Xiao's Huai asked curiously. "Gossip," Chen Lian said calmly. Wang Xiao's Huai was stunned for a moment, and a trace of embarrassment flashed across his face. Why was he gossiping? Just to satisfy curiosity. However, after seeing Chen Lian's serious expression, Wang Xiao's Huai suddenly understood that the Bagua Chen Lian was talking about was Bagua Zhang. After figuring it out, Wang Xiao's Huai felt even more embarrassed, and said with a somewhat unnatural expression, "The weather is so cold, let's start now." No one noticed Wang Xiaoshui's unnatural look. Most people focused on Chen Lian's sexy figure. In the absence of lights and scene management, the photographer is ready when he picks up the machine. The hair tie on Chen Lian's head was still tied by Ma Xiaoqing, but she had to stand on tiptoe. This time the headband says today is the beginning of winter. Wang Xiao's Huai waited for Chen Lian to be ready and signaled the scene to mute the sound, then nodded to Chen Lian. "Start shooting." Chen Lian, who was wearing only a pair of underwear and a hair tie, walked to the river and jumped in. The cold and biting river water immediately surrounded him. The turbid river water had a faint fishy smell. Chen Lian emerged from the water, took a quick breath, and changed his position to face up. The river water was too cold, and the biting chill made Chen Lian's expression a little uncontrollable, but this just showed the character's truest state. The camera moved forward quickly, placing Chen Lian's figure in the center of the frame. Chen Lian's expression in the camera lens was indifferent, but his frozen and pale skin was slowly trembling, as if he was struggling to survive. Chen Lian floated on his back on the water, slowly closed his eyes, exhaled all the air in his abdomen, and allowed himself to gradually sink to the bottom of the water. When his body sank to the bottom of the water and his whole body was enveloped by the river water, Chen Lian felt an indescribable relaxation. But the feeling of suffocation that followed instantly caused Chen Lian's body's instinctive desire to survive to burst out. Control. Self-control. Chen Lian told himself over and over again in his mind to use his willpower to fight against instinct. The originally rippling water slowly returned to calm under Chen Lian's restraint. The onlookers at the riverside saw Chen Lian sinking to the bottom of the water. They all turned their attention to Wang Xiao's Huai and waited for him to stop. On such a cold day, it is very dangerous to completely sink to the bottom of the water. This is different from winter swimming, which is constantly moving. The simulated water burial was unable to move, and according to Chen Lian's possessed state, he might have sunk to the bottom of the river as a corpse. Wang Xiao's Huai was also very worried. After Chen Lian sank to the bottom of the water, he counted silently in his mind. This shot will take at least 1 minute to shoot. If you stop now, it means that you have to take another shot. In that case, Chen Lian will continue to stay in the water. Ma Xiaoqing was a little anxious, looked at Wang Xiao's Huai and urged in a low voice, "Isn't it okay?" Wang Xiao's Huai didn't speak, and was still counting silently in his mind. It wasn't until he counted to 1 minute that he shouted loudly, "Chen Lian. It's okay. Come out." Ma Xiaoqing, who had been waiting, immediately shouted, "Chen Lian. Come out quickly. The filming is over, the filming is over." They all ignored Chen Lian's previous request and just shouted Chen Lian's name, leaving Qi Lei behind. But their shouts did not make the calm water surface still so calm. The turbid river water seemed to be a black hole that swallowed souls, and no one who sank in could escape. Chen Lian, who was sinking to the bottom of the water, vaguely heard the shouts of Wang Xiao's Huai and Ma Xiaoqing, and his consciousness suddenly woke up. He was about to swing his arms to swim upstream, but found that his feet were entangled in water plants. Wang Xiao's Huai on the shore looked at the water for a long time without any movement, and shouted with some fear, "Is nothing going to happen? Who knows how to swim? Go down and save people." There was chaos on the shore. Wang Xiao's Huai knew how to swim and immediately reacted to take off his clothes and go into the water to save people. Other people in the crew who knew how to swim were also taking off their shoes and clothes, preparing to go into the water to rescue people. Wang Xiao's Huai was the first to react and quickly took off his shoes and pants. Looking at the calm water, Wang Xiao's Huai couldn't help but shudder. He was afraid that if he went into the water and someone failed to rescue him, he would be drowned again. Just when Wang Xiao's Huai hesitated, he saw Chen Lian's figure suddenly emerging from the water. I was scared to death." Wang Xiao's Huai was so frightened that he cursed. He didn't know whether he was frightened by the sudden appearance of Chen Lian or by the almost accident. Chen Lian, who surfaced, took a deep breath, then swung his frozen limbs and swam toward the shore. Ma Xiaoqing immediately lay down on the shore, stretched out her hand and shouted, "Grab my hand, come up." Chen Lian stretched out his hand hard, grabbed Ma Xiaoqing's hand, pushed his legs forward, and finally climbed to the shore. Ma Xiaoqing looked at Chen Lian's purple lips that were frozen and his body that couldn't help but tremble. Without caring about anything else, he immediately hugged Chen Lian and pulled him to the shore. The rest of the crew immediately gathered around and helped Ma Xiaoqing drag Chen Lian ashore. Shu Qi looked at Chen Lian's condition and immediately shouted, "Tao! Get the clothes quickly." Chen Lian sat on the shore, his lips trembling uncontrollably. He felt that his blood was about to solidify, and his plump and well-developed muscles could not provide him with much heat. Ma Xiaoqing looked at Chen Lian and hugged Chen Lian hard without any hesitation. The rest of the crew also took off their coats and covered Chen Lian. Under Ma Xiaoqing's embrace and the thick, body-warming coat, Chen Lian's body temperature gradually warmed up. Ma Xiaoqing felt Chen Lian's body slowly stop shaking, and for some reason she asked that sentence again in his ear. "Is this necessary? You could have come up earlier." There was embarrassment hidden in Chen Lian's calm eyes. He was really embarrassed to say that he was hooked by a waterweed. This really didn't fit his character as a drama queen, so he said softly, "It's necessary." Ma Xiaoqing was stunned. Looking at Chen Lian's serious eyes, she felt a little admired by this man. Fringe artists in the entertainment industry. Author, Chizu de Xiaomao. Chapter 10. Chapter 10:10. Darkroom. The yellow flames were burning, and the hot air waves evaporated all the moisture in the air. Chen Lian was sitting cross-legged on the ground, surrounded by flames, with a hairband on his head that read, "Today is the beginning of spring." After the simulated water burial, Chen Lian rested for a while and then started the simulated cremation. It was exactly as Wang Xiao's Huai said, he took a bath first and then warmed himself up by the fire. Chen Lian in the center of the flames was not as comfortable as Wang Xiao's Huai said, because the crew was very poor and did not use ether with a very low ignition point, but a small amount of gasoline to light the dead branches. The hot fire waves burned Chen Lian's skin, and his long black hair was slightly curled. Surrounded by such flames, Chen Lian felt that he was experiencing two worlds of ice and fire, because the biting cold brought by the water burial was still raging in his body, and the peripheral flames made his skin feel burning pain. This kind of experience really cannot be described in words. Chen Lian only has one feeling now: performance artists are all crazy. However, it was also because of this feeling that Chen Lian grasped what was missing in his heart. He was not paranoid or crazy enough, and he had not truly fit the character and turned into Chile. At the periphery of the flames, the camera recorded this scene. In the beating flames, Chen Lian, with his eyes closed, seemed to be waiting for death to come. It was peaceful and strange. The flame burns fiercely and extinguishes very quickly, and a small amount of gasoline does not last long. The entire simulated cremation did not last long, only 5 minutes. After completing 3 simulated deaths in one day, Chen Lian's body had reached its limit, and he was also mentally exhausted. After following the cruise car back to the West Village, Chen Lian got out of the car exhausted. Wang Xiao's Huai jumped out of the car, stretched his mellow body, walked up to Chen Lian in a high-spirited manner and asked, "Chile, let's have a drink together tonight." Wang Xiao's Huai has now firmly remembered that his name should be Chile. The afterglow of dusk exuded a golden light, and Chen Lian felt that his energy was about to be unable to support him going down the mountain. He replied in a hoarse voice, "No, I need to eat now and then have a good sleep." "Okay, do you want to take you back?" Wang Xiao's Huai didn't force it. Today was indeed quite tiring, and he almost had an accident. Chen Lian shook his head, said hello to the crew and left. At the intersection outside the West Village, Chen Lian put his hands in his pockets and was a little confused about which direction to go. Go straight ahead to go home, turn right to go to Bai Qing's place. Chen Lian, who was exhausted, longed for a warm embrace to let him rest for a while. Chen Lian looked down at Bai Qing's self-portrait on the t-shirt and looked away from the right. If things continue to develop, Chen Lian is afraid that Bai Qing will really fall in love with him. He is not a dedicated person. It is good to let a relationship stay in the joy and desire before love, but if it really turns into love, it will hurt the other party. Chen Lian will always exercise restraint on this point, trying not to hurt any relationship and not let down every girl. The West Village is a bit remote. There are many buses, but there are no taxis. Chen Lian stood at the intersection, hoping to meet a taxi. As for the bumpy and crowded bus, he did not consider it. "Hey! Where are you going?" Ma Xiaoqing appeared from behind Chen Lian, her round face flushed, and it looked like she had come running. Ma Xiaoqing was panting slightly. She just realized that Chen Lian left first and immediately chased after him. She didn't know why she wanted to catch up, or what she wanted to do, but she just couldn't control herself, and there was always an inexplicable impulse in her heart. Chen Lian lifted up the long hair that covered his eyes, exposed his eyes, and looked at Ma Xiaoqing with doubts in his eyes. Ma Xiaoqing felt a little embarrassed when Chen Lian looked at her. She felt that she was too impulsive and said awkwardly, Why do you look at me like that?" Chen Lian shook his head and said, "It's nothing. I'm going to eat and then go home and sleep. Can we go together?" "I'm going to eat too," Ma Xiaoqing said immediately. After speaking, Ma Xiaoqing also let go of her shyness. Without waiting for Chen Lian to answer, she took his arm and said, "Let's go, I know there is a family here, the braised food is particularly good." Chen Lian did not agree or refute, and allowed Ma Xiaoqing to pull him. He felt that she was a little too enthusiastic, but then he thought about it. They were a couple in the movie, so there was no problem in getting to know each other. Not hearing Chen Lian's answer, Ma Xiaoqing turned to look at Chen Lian's profile and asked curiously, "Don't you like braised food?" "No, it's good when braised." Silence is the main theme between the two, but Ma Xiaoqing quite likes this feeling, but she can't control her curiosity. "Is that your girlfriend painted on your clothes?" "No." "Did you draw it yourself?" "No." "So do you have a girlfriend?" No. Ma Xiaoqing, who had been asking for a long time, was a little discouraged and said with a hint of resentment in her eyes, "Don't you want to talk to me? You think I'm too annoying?" No. Ma Xiaoqing, forget it, give up, this is just a piece of wood. There are less than 10 tables in the small fly restaurant. The owner is a chubby middle-aged man, and the steaming cauldron constantly exudes an alluring aroma. Ma Xiaoqing took Chen Lian to find an empty table and sat down. She turned around and shouted to the boss, 2 bowls of stew and 4 of fire. The braised food is very fragrant, the soup is rich, and the braised food is also good. Chen Lian ate 2 braised dishes and 1 bowl of braised food to make up for all the lost calories. Ma Xiaoqing ate slowly, and Chen Lian sat there and watched her eat after finishing her meal. Ma Xiaoqing's appearance was not very outstanding, she could only be regarded as an average beauty, but her round face looked quite cute. Chen Lian's eyes were filled with admiration, and Ma Xiaoqing took a bite of the fire with some embarrassment. She had never encountered such an undisguised gaze. Ma Xiaoqing stirred in the bowl with a spoon and asked calmly, "Are you going home later?" "Well, I'm waiting for you to finish eating," Chen Lian replied. Ma Xiaoqing put down the spoon in her hand and said, "I'm done eating." "Well, let's go then." Chen Lian took out $10 from his wallet and put it on the table. Ma Xiaoqing didn't rush to pay after seeing it. The money wasn't much anyway. After coming out of the stew shop, Chen Lian stretched his waist, turned to look at Ma Xiaoqing and said, "What are you doing?" "I live not far away." Ma Xiaoqing hesitated for a moment and then said, "How about you go to my house to sit and look at the photos taken today?" "Do you have a darkroom at home?" Chen Lian asked curiously. He originally thought that Ma Xiaoqing only brought a camera because the characters in the movie needed it. In the movie, the character played by Ma Xiaoqing is a photographer. Ma Xiaoqing nodded and said, "Yes, do you want to go and have a look?" "Let's go then, I haven't seen how the photos are developed." "Then can you let me take a few more pictures later?" Chen Lian, why do you feel like you have heard this before? In the dim darkroom, the red light was a bit dim and I could barely see. The smell of the developer was a bit pungent, not as good as turpentine at all. Ma Xiaoqing wore white rubber gloves, held the photo paper with tweezers and shook it in the developer a few times. Chen Lian, who was standing behind Ma Xiaoqing, watched Ma Xiaoqing develop the photos seriously. It was not very troublesome to develop the photos, but there were a few more steps, but Ma Xiaoqing was obviously a veteran. In about 20 minutes, the first photo was developed. Chen Lian leaned over and took a closer look at himself in the photo. "Why did you wash this one first?" Chen Lian looked at his half-naked self in the photo. The angle of the photo was slightly backlit, showing off his figure perfectly. Ma Xiaoqing's hand holding the photo paused for a moment, and she said without confidence, "It happened to be that I chose that negative." Of course it was not a coincidence. Chen Lian saw that Ma Xiaoqing had specifically looked at the negatives before developing the photos. This photo must have been specially chosen by her. Chen Lian did not expose Ma Xiaoqing's lie. After she had developed all the films and hung them up, the two came out of the darkroom. As soon as she came out of the darkroom, Ma Xiaoqing picked up her camera and said to Chen Lian, "I want to take a few more pictures." "The camera is in your hands as you please, but can I borrow your sofa to sleep for a while?" Chen Lian said nonchalantly while sitting on the sofa. Ma Xiaoqing, "How can I take pictures of you sleeping?"